Let's start with the training now. Um, Good afternoon, guys. My name is Musabuddin Syed. You can call me Musab. And speaking about me and my career, I'm having a small experience of something around 7 years, in which I've been involved into 2 or 3 different companies, and I was having the experience on different platforms. Like I've been working on Unix, I've been working for Linux, I was working for VMware, one of my key skills up till now, whatever I'm doing in this past 7 years. In this past 7 years, I've been, been into different projects which was domestically have been performed, and the one which have been performed internationally for the same cause. We've been to Dubai, Libya, Afghanistan. So there were 3-4 countries which I have visited up till now in my career working on these projects. And speaking about training career, I've been dealing with the trainings for more than 4 years, and in this 4 years I've been taking something around 200 batches. I'm sorry, 200 plus batches I've been taken, and still it is counting on. So that's small introduction of mine, that what I've been doing and how the things are going around. Let's now come back to the topic what we are here for, to know about VMware. So speaking about VMware, let's try to talk about something, what is this VMware, and how VMware is related with us, and how we are trying to work with that. So let me run another PDF. Okay, so let's go in this way, guys. Assume that let's talk traditionally, that what is this virtualization and why do we have to go for virtualization in terms of VMware, and what is this VMware actually. So speaking about virtualization, guys, assume that we are having only one particular machine, and this particular machine we are going to use for our application or our quality, or for testing, or for any kind of application which is very important for my organization. So assume that in the same way I have 3, 4 or more than that application that has to be run on each machine. Then I require minimum 4 physical machines that would be accommodating my different applications or databases, or any other thing that has been related in my machine, in my organization. So probably what happens over here is, if I go for a traditional way, like using one physical machine for one application or one database or one other production equipment, then if I have 4 kind of important application, then I may be requiring 4 physical machines to be there. But the things to observe over here is, do we really utilize the entire hardware what we have purchased? Are we going to completely utilize the memory what we have purchased, or what is the CPU that is there in my machine? Assume that we are having a box which we have purchased, maybe an IBM server or Dell server or HP server, whatever it might be. Now in that I'm having a bit of RAM, for example 8 GB, and I'm having a CPU, maybe dual core or quad core, like that. I'm having 2 CPUs which is connected to my machine, and I'm having a hard drive of almost 1 terabyte, something like that. So the question arises over here, the application what I'm putting on the top of it, does it really needs this big of infrastructure to purchase? See, at the time of purchasing the hardware, we don't really see that how much it is going to consume. We just purchase the hardware, and once the hardware is available, we can technically find that out, that the resources what we are having is not fully utilized. Maybe my application is only taking 2 GB of RAM, it is only taking 1 CPU and taking 200 or 300 GB of the disk inside it. So probably the resources what I have is not fully utilized. It is not being completely utilized. So I'm actually wasting the resources whatever I have. So in this scenario, going with one-on-one concept does not make a sense to me, because I am losing out my resources and I'm keeping it in my machine running unnecessarily. So in the other way, if I put a virtualization technique on this existing server, then in one machine I can have many machines which would be perfectly utilizing the hardware, perfectly utilize the CPU and the RAM what is being connected to my machine. One thing. Secondly, assume that I have 3 to 4 machines in my environment which is being used for different applications, databases, or whatever is the need of your organization. So here, to work with it, I require each one to have an Ethernet adapter, and each Ethernet adapter would be connected to maybe a switch. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We cannot depend on one Ethernet adapter and one cable. So in this scenario, maybe I would go for two ports. Now each port I would be connecting to multiple switch for redundancy. The second one would be connecting here, something like this. So in this scenario, if you just check it out, that to maintain 4 machines, I require two ports on each VM. That means again the cost is involved, and the networking cables that have been used in that particular scenario is again increasing the cost of my infrastructure. I require multiple cables to be there. I require multiple networking environments to be there. So overall, maintaining one machine individually will cost me more when compared to virtualized environment. Not only this, let me say in this manner as well. Let's say that we are having something called SAN environment. Now as of now, if you see, most of the environment will be working on storage, because we don't want it to depend on the local storage. What happens if my local storage fails? Then I may be facing issues. So in that scenario, what we will do is we will take our server and we will integrate our machines with SAN storage, where you would be having number of disks connected, and this particular disk will be on a RAID group for a better performance, and then you would be receiving a disk over there. So even if something happens to my machine or my operating system, the valuable data of our application would be safe on storage network. Now when we talk about storage, especially let's try to talk about fiber channel storages, SAN storages like EMC, Clarion, VNX, IBM, DS storage, or Hitachi, or other storages, whatever might be available in the market, HP 3-power kind of thing. So in this scenario, the investment goes very high when I wanted to use it on multiple machines. Assume that I have individual machines that is working on my environment. So each machine, in order to receive that SAN LAN, I require a special fiber channel setup. I require that fiber channel ports to be there on each machine. So these ports will be available on a card, which we will call it as HBA card, host burst adapter, which is a special type of hardware which will not be included in your server unless you demand for it, and for which you have to pay an extra amount. Now for one server, I would be receiving it from one fiber channel or one fiber cable. On the other, I would be receiving it with the help of other cable, and other I'll require it on the other cable. So over here, to maintain this kind of environment, I require 4 machines, each one which is having the fiber ports on the top of it, HBA cards, and we are also investing our money for fiber channel cable. Believe me guys, this setup would be very expensive. The HBA cards in the Indian currency would cost you 5 to 10,000 rupees per card, and the fiber channel cable what we are using would cost you 5,000 rupees for approximately 10 meters or 5 meters. So overall the investment would be very high when it comes to individual machine. And on the other side, as discussed, the total resources what is there on my physical machine may not be fully utilized. So overall, to reduce or to bring down the cost of your data center and the infrastructure, we may be moving to the new technology, the new data center in the world, that would be virtualized data center. One more thing, guys, I haven't talked about that yet, but there is one more very important concept over here, is the power consumption, electricity consumption. If I maintain 4 machines, then all 4 machines would be consuming power, and to keep it I require a place. So overall the cost is getting very much high with increment of each machine in your data center in terms of place, in terms of power, in terms of resources, or whatever the things that have been connected to my machine. And that too, at the end of the day, my resources are not fully utilized and I am running into the losses in terms of resources. So to overcome all these things, we prefer to have a virtualized environment in today's world. Now, how virtualized environment would be beneficial to me? Let's try to talk about it. Initially, assume that I would go for a high power server which would be having full resources inside it. Maybe I would be having an internal storage of 10 terabyte. I would be having 8 GB of RAM maybe. I would be having quad-core processor or 4-core processor, whatever it might be, of any vendor, maybe HP, Dell or IBM, whichever you prefer. Now in this particular scenario, putting one machine, one OS, one application would be waste of resource. So what I'll do out over here is the same environment, I would split it into multiple machines. So what I'll do is on the top of the resources whatever I am having, I will divide this machine into multiple machines. Basically the concept or the definitions of virtualization is also same, splitting the physical resources into logical resources. Now here what I'll do out over here is I may be going for multiple machines depending upon the resources available. Now if you can find out over here, guys, each VM what I have created over here would be consuming the same resource which is available in my machine. I don't require extra NICs to be available for each VM. On the available NIC, maybe the 2 NICs what have been connected to your machine would be sufficient for all the VMs that is running in your machine. So how many cables do I need? Only 2 cables. And if I'm going for fiber channel, only 1 HBA maybe with multiple port would be more than enough for me, and I would be having my storage would be giving that connectivity to my machine, and all the VMs will be getting fed by that particular HBA. So overall whatever I'm trying to tell you over here is in one machine I can run multiple machines. Each machine would be hosting an individual application, individual operating system. It would be behaving as an independent machine. So what are this saving for me? Lots of things. Firstly, on the place, I'm having only one machine in place of 10 individual machines. I'm having only one set of resources in place of 10 set of resources. I'm having only one machine hosting multiple applications in the form of VMs for me. So overall, the intensity and the integrity of the data center would be low. Now over here, I don't require that extra effort or extra money to involve. With a very least amount of money, I can go for all these setup. In cost of 1, I can have 10. That's the better advantage of your virtualization. Now let's actually try to see something that what in your virtualization technique will help you to go or virtualize your environment. If we talk about virtualization, guys, the important thing in your virtualization would be something called hypervisor. Assume that, guys, I have a machine and I would like to virtualize it. So if I want to virtualize it, my hardware, whatever hardware I might be having, maybe I'm having CPU, maybe I'm having memory, maybe I'm having anything, whatever it might be, that cannot be virtualized directly and given to VMs. So between my hardware and between my VMs, I may require one translator, the guy who will convert all the physical resources into virtual resources and give it to my VMs. And that particular thing, we call it as hypervisor. Now this hypervisor is an important element who act as an interface between your physical resources and the virtual resources. All the RAM, all the CPU, all the hard drive, whatever you are having will be virtualized by this hypervisor, and it would be fed to all your VMs that is running on the top of it. Now basically these hypervisors are available in different format. There are two types of hypervisor. One is type 1 and the other one is type 2. So what is this type 1 hypervisor? Type 1 hypervisor is bare metal hypervisor. So bare metal hypervisor is something which you will directly install on a physical machine. Maybe I'll take HP's hardware, maybe I'll take Dell's hardware, maybe I'll take IBM's hardware, or any supported hardware. I will take it, and on the top of hardware I will install my virtualization operating system with a kernel or a hypervisor inside it. Okay, so here what I'm trying to do is, on the top of a physical machine I'm installing my virtualization software and I'm trying to go for virtualization directly. So here I don't require any extra converter other than hypervisor. Apart from this, I may have one more type of hypervisor which is called as type 2 hypervisor, which is host based hypervisor. Now this kind of hypervisors are much used by a small what I can say, a very small setup for testing. Probably, let me say you wanted to have multiple VMs in your desktops or in your laptops, and you would like to practice Linux or in a different Windows operating system or something like that. So for that we would be going for host-based hypervisor. In your host-based hypervisor, what we will do is, we will take a machine which is already having an operating system installed. Maybe it is Windows or maybe Linux or any other operating system which is supported. On the top of that particular operating system, we will deploy our hypervisor. Probably guys, you might have seen this kind of hypervisor like VMware Workstation. So it is just a small software which you will install, and then you will go for virtualization. So here the dependency would be of your operating system. If my operating system is powered on, then it will start the software, and then software will go for virtualization. And here your VMs will be knowing that I am virtualized. They will be knowing that I am in a virtual environment. Whereas when you go for bare metal, the VMs will behave as an independent physical machine. They does not know whether they are virtualized or they are a physical machine. They only try to understand that I'm running on a physical environment and I'm not virtualized. So here we get more feasibility than the host-based hypervisor. Let's talk about more on this. If we go about host-based hypervisor, then we have 2-3 options to go for host-based. Like you can go for VMware Workstation, which is again a software which you can simply install, and you can go for virtualization within your laptop or desktop. Or you can go for Oracle VirtualBox. So there are many other applications might be available in the internet which you can use it to go for virtualization. But host-based hypervisor, as I've told you, would be having some limitations, some boundaries where the VMs cannot do much. Whereas when it comes to bare metal hypervisor, it is a production hypervisor where I can deploy a number of VMs and I can work as an independent machine on the top of it. So what are the bare metal hypervisors available? So initially, let's talk about our VMware hypervisor, that is ESXi, very latest one, and the version currently is 5.5, and the very latest, which is recently released, is 6.0. Then we have something like Citrix hypervisor. You have Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization Managers hypervisor. You have Oracle Virtual Managers hypervisor, and from IBM, especially for AIX environment, you have Power hypervisor. So basically there are many hypervisors available, or the software is available that contains this particular hypervisors in the market. Especially the ESXi hypervisor comes inside one package or one suite, which we call as VMware Vsphere suite. So VMware Vsphere suite is a collection of various virtualization software which includes your hypervisor ESXi, the latest one. And like that, we have other competitors available in the market which is also going on, but the major competitor of VMware might be only Citrix, because these are the two which is going on very high in the market, and VMware is ruling out the market with more share in the market, and the feasibility what it has is brilliant. Now, to support my words, let us talk about the same thing in the form of a slide what I have over here. So let's try to talk about the introduction to virtualization. Now, as you can see out over here, this is my normal physical infrastructure. On this physical infrastructure, you can just check it out over here that I'm having multiple physical machines running over here. Assume this is my data center. In my data center, I have almost 8 machines running, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each machine I required to go with operating system, and on the top of it I would go for application. Now what I tried to show you earlier is supported over here. To maintain it, if I want to go with my networking or fiber channel support, then each machine requires one Ethernet cable connected to the environment, and to receive the fiber channel support I require the fiber channel adapters to be connected and fiber channel cables to be connected. So overall I require 8 networking cable, 8 fiber channel cable, 8 Ethernet adapter, and 8 fiber channel adapter. So overall the cost is very high in this scenario, and the maintenance would go very high. So in this scenario, overall the investment is growing high. To avoid it, if I go for a virtualized environment, what is the advantage? Let's try to talk. So over here you can see I'm having a physical machine. On the top of it I'm installing my hypervisor, that is VMware hypervisor ESXi, and on the top of it I can maintain many machines. Previously what we have seen is we were having only one machine per host. So we were having per machine only one machine, one host. But when it comes to ESXi environment or virtualization environment, I can see that I'm having one host with many VMs running on the top of it. To maintain 6 VMs, I don't require 6 NIC cards. I don't require 6 FC cards. With one NIC, I can manage my networking to all. With one SC, I can manage all my fiber channel things in one. So overall, over here, you can see that the consumption of the resources is better, and the utilization is better, and I'm consuming very less power, very less resources when compared to the previous environment which was running on the physical infrastructure. So this is how my VMware or any virtualization thing is trying to protect it. Let's try to find out what is the difference between physical and virtual architecture. It's quite simple. Generally, what happens over here is I'm having an architecture where I'm having a disk, I'm having a NIC card, I'm having a RAM, I'm having a CPU. All that will be utilized by one operating system and one application, that's it. But whereas on the contrary, when we talk about virtual architecture, now all these things, whatever we are seeing, disk, NIC, RAM or CPU, is utilized by VMware vSphere. On the top of it, you will be having multiple VMs running, so the same thing is better utilized in this scenario. Now what is the difference between physical machine and a virtual machine? See, initially, what is a physical machine? Physical machine is a set of hardware. So if I wanted to move my hardware from one data center to other data center, that means it involves lots of moving, lots of disconnections and lots of connections. So where the moving becomes very difficult. Whereas what is a virtual machine? Virtual machine is just a combination of files. It is just a normal file which is available on the ESXi environment. So moving that file is quite simple for me. Whenever I want to move it, it's a very easy task because the entire virtual machine is encapsulated into files and which is independent of physical hardware. I can simply take my virtual machine in a pen drive and I can move it to the other data center to deploy it. So moving of VM becomes very, very easy for me. Bound to specific set of hardware components. That means my hardware can only be available on this area. I cannot use it. But here, when it comes to VM, it is isolated with other virtual machine and it is independent. I can move it from here and I can put it over there. One more thing, guys. The life cycle of the physical machine is very short. After 2 years or 3 years, the previous hardware becomes obsolete, outdated, and as a result of which you will try to upgrade your hardware to the next level, wherein when it comes to virtual machine, it is just a virtual machine. So if the new version is available, simply I'll upgrade my virtualized environment, and as a result of it, my virtual machine will keep on upgraded and it will be running for the long time. So probably over here the requirement becomes very simple and the management becomes very simple when it comes to physical as well as virtual. My resource sharing is also a very simple out over here. I have multiple hardwares connected to my vSphere environment, and where I would be connecting my CPUs and my network easily and I would be using it. Okay. So similarly, I'm going to virtualize my resources. I'm going to virtualize my CPU. 4 CPUs will be split into multiple CPUs as a virtual environment. That we are going to learn in the coming classes, where we will talk about symmetric multiprocessing, a concept in VMware which will help you to convert one physical CPU into multiple logical CPU or virtual CPU, so that each VM could get multiple CPUs over here. Similarly, my memory would be virtualized. Earlier, when it comes to physical architecture, 4 CPUs only working for one machine. Here, 4 CPUs working for many machines. In the same way, 1 RAM working only for one application, one OS. But the same RAM now is being utilized by multiple VMs for multiple purposes. Okay. Similarly, guys, when it comes to networking, one NIC card working only for one piece of box, whereas in virtual machine, multiple virtual machines can communicate via one NIC card. So again, the networking requirement will be low and very compatible and very cost efficient, effective. Similarly, guys, on my physical environment, I have my native file system depending upon what operating system you are using. Here, if I'm using operating system of Windows, then I can format my disk with NTFS, FAT. If it is Linux, then I can format it with ext3, or I can go for other kind of file system depending upon the operating system we are using. But when it comes to virtualized environment, VMware used its own type of file system called VMFS, Virtual Machine File System, which is compatible with any operating system which is having far more advantageous than the native file system what is there on your personal operating system. So it does not goes on operating system and make any change. I will simply use this VMFS. I would convert this particular VMFS into small chunks, and each chunk I would give it to my virtual machine where it would be behaving as the disk, which I can again format according to the operating system. Maybe I can format it with NTFS, maybe I can format it with ext3, ext4, or any, depending upon what operating system you are using. So as I've told you guys, what is a virtual machine? It is simply an encapsulation of files. My total virtual machine is divided into number of configuration files, which is maintained in one folder, and that folder will be maintained on the top of a data store, whatever you are using. Again, what is a data store? That we will try to learn when we talk about the storage concept in your virtualization. Overall, it's a container where all my virtual machine files will be maintained in the form of a folder. And as we have talked, guys, that virtual machine is a combination of many files where I would be having my configuration files, where I would be having my swap files, I would be having my BIOS files, I would be having my log files, and finally my virtual disk files. So all these things will be maintained under a folder, and that would be called as a VM. So guys, moving this folder is not a difficult task for me. If I have to move my virtual machine from one place to other machine, I did not have to carry the entire server. I simply take that folder and I'll move it to other data center, and I'll deploy it over there. So migrating of VMs, this kind of thing is very, very simple, instead of migrating your physical machines or moving the physical machines. Okay, also guys, in today's world we have a concept of cloud computing. See, cloud computing is something where we call it as data center on demand or capacity on demand. Assume that, guys, I'm not having resources to maintain a data center at my place. So what I'll do is I'll hire it one from my cloud providers. So what cloud providers will do is they'll take the request from the client, like how many machines do you need, what is the configuration do you need, how much CPU do you need, how much memory do you need. So depending upon the total requirement of your client, immediately they are going to deploy VMs, and they will give it to them so that they can manage it. Assume, guys, if the same cloud providers are using physical setup, now depending upon the requirement of the clients, the provider needs to purchase the hardware first, they need to purchase the RAMs, they need to purchase the CPU, and all in all, to assemble everything and give it to client will take more than 2 days at least, or 3 days, or maybe a week, whatever it might be, depending upon the requirement. But as at the back end, if we are trying to use over here something called hypervisor or our virtualization tool, it would be quite very simple for me to deploy the VMs in a click. Like, most probably what happens is whatever cloud setup you might be using, or whatever stack or software you might be using, maybe you are using OpenStack, maybe you are using a cloud stack, whatever it might be, there would be an application that would be sitting over there, and that application will take the information from the client, give it to the virtualization environment, on the top of it where you would be able to create multiple VMs, and that VMs may be used by the clients from anywhere in the world with the help of internet. So that is something, your cloud computing. So even VMware has its own cloud solution called VMware vCloud Director. So this VMware vCloud Director will allow you to make multiple types of clouds for your environment. Like you can have a private cloud for only your virtualization and your internal organizational need, or you can have a public cloud where the VMs what you have designed for your clients would be working. Now sometimes what happens over here is, guys, I require that few of the VMs from my private cloud, I want it to be moved to public cloud, or I want few of the VMs from public cloud to move to my private cloud. The private cloud will not be accessible by general public. It is only for the internal staff. Public cloud is place where I would be having the entire setup running for my clients and whoever is using it. Now, over here, what happens is, between public cloud and private cloud, whatever VMs you would like to move will be moved out with the help of another cloud, guys, called hybrid cloud. I'm missing that slide over here, but there will be a cloud called hybrid cloud, with the help of which few of the VMs that is running on public cloud can be migrated to private, and few of the private clouds can be migrated to public. Like that, what happens over here is you would be able to play between private cloud, public cloud with the panel of hybrid cloud. So all these solutions is also provided to you by VMware. So this is, a small intro, I could say, that what I wanted to tell you. But if I start talking about this virtualization environment and VMware features, it would be a very, very long dose and a very long session. So all in all, this virtualization configuration is quite a very, very interesting part, where we are trying to learn lots of things over here, and lots of important, what I can say, and interesting components are there inside your virtualization, like vMotion, storage vMotions, where you'll see that the VMs are flying from one host to other host, or you'll see DRS, that automation of virtual machines moving whenever there is the load high. So VMware people have tried to give us the best possible solution in virtualization than any other virtualization vendor, which you can understand while we are learning this particular concept. There is much more things are there in which we have to talk about that. Now, one more thing I'd like to tell you, that talking about kerneltraining.com, that why you should learn from kerneltraining.com. And the reason is, guys, at the backend, what servers or data center we are using is a very, very explosive data center and a very, very cutting edge data center, where we are having the latest techniques, latest technologies, and all the available requirements in our data center, where we are going to show you the entire setup of VMware on the top of IBM hardware, which is a very costly hardware what we are maintaining over there, and on the top of it we are having all type of storages to show you. We are having SAN storages, we are having NAS storages, and we are having NFS storages, which a compatibility of many things where you can get in your working environment. You may be dependent on SAN storages like IBM storages, or a very famous EMC storages, like we have EMC Clarion, we have EMC VNX, we have EMC Symmetric. So we have many models of storages that is available, and we have the entire physical setup with great configuration to work with any kind of topics that we are trying to discuss in VMware. Apart from that, we have different kind of setup available. We have IBM virtualization, we have this VMware virtualization, Citrix is also there. So all in all, the data center what we are having over here is equipped with all the latest and the cutting edge technology, where a pupil or a student can actually check it out, that how the real-time work goes on, and you can map it if you are working from your virtual environment at your working places, that how it works on, and what are the things that is there, and what are the things that are not there in your environment, and all those things. So all in all, guys, we are having a very highly equipped data center, which would be running 24/7, where we have our clients also approaching it for POC kind of thing, and we would be having a separate setup for our training division, totally dedicated for training environment. So that's it from my point of view. and this is what I was trying to convey you about the VMware and about kerneltraining.com. Rest of the thing about our learning module and the programs what we are trying to use inside it, and how you can connect, what you can do about the classes and all everything. Chandra will help you with that particular thing. Chandra, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm available. Thanks,
Chandra,
Mr. Musaf. Thanks, Mr. Musaf. Are you able to hear me?
okay, I would mute myself and you can take on the show from now.
Definitely, yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for attending the class. I just wanted to brief about my kernel training right now. So I just wanted to share my screen. Just be on hold for a minute. Okay. So I hope you can able to see my screen. Definitely, guys. Alright, so first of all, I just wanted to introduce about my kernel training. Kernel training is a long way journey where we are there from last 5 years in the market, and we have just started this online training, and we wanted to give a best benefit to all the students. We have trained more than 10,000 professionals in this place, and we mostly concentrate on the different trainings. So we are into Linux administration from past 5 years, and we are into all the technologies like VMware. We are also into Oracle, NetApp, SAN, storage and everything. So let me put some light onto my kernel training website. So this is a website where we have designed for you people to know about more about kernel training. So you can just type kerneltraining.com where you'll be landing to my page. So in this page you'll able to see what are the different courses we are going to give you. The first course, the different courses we have inbuilt in our kernel training right now is on the screen. Like you can also go for Cassandra, Linux virtualization, and NetApp, Oracle DBA, self-scripting, RAC, and we are also mostly concentrating onto the Hadoop's infrastructure like Hadoop administration, Hadoop development, and Hadoop admin and development. We are also into Android, Advanced Java, Linux cluster. So all the core competence of the training into administration and the development we are going through. And this is all about the trainings what we are wanted to show you. And